They told you, if you wanted love, you had to earn it. So you tried. You showed up. You texted first. You planned the dates. You gave more than you got, all in the hope that one day she would choose you. But something strange kept happening. The more effort you gave, the faster she pulled away. It didn't matter how kind you were, or how consistent. It didn't even matter if you were the best version of yourself, because in her eyes, you became too easy, too predictable, too available. And here's the truth no one told you. What's easily gained rarely gets deeply valued. Machiavelli didn't write about romance. He wrote about power, but his words echo through the quiet pain of men who chase too hard. He said, "It is far safer to be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, and fear here doesn't mean aggression, it means presence. The kind of presence that commands attention without ever needing to beg for it. You see, most men lose their edge the moment they seek validation instead of direction, the moment they orbit her. Instead of building a world she wants to be part of, women aren't drawn to desperation. They're drawn to gravity, to silence, to restraint, to the man who looks her in the eye and says, "I want you here, but I will never need you to complete me." This isn't a game. This isn't manipulation. This is transformation. A shift from chasing to attracting, from performing to leading, from proving to embodying. Because the moment you stop trying to win her over is the moment she begins to wonder why she ever needed to be convinced. In this video, you'll discover 5 timeless shifts, 5 principles rooted in Machiavellian clarity and masculine discipline. They won't just change how women see you, they'll change how you see yourself. So if you're tired of the chase, if you're done handing your power to people who never earned it, then don't just listen. Lean in, absorb this, and when something inside you stirs, a calm, heavy realization, follow it. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but for the man you're becoming. Because that man doesn't beg for love. He commands it. And everything shifts the moment he stops chasing. Every man knows the sting. You meet a woman who excites you. You show up fully. You give her your best. You offer kindness, consistency, effort. And what does she do? She fades. She pulls back. She goes cold. At first, you blame yourself. Maybe you didn't say the right things. Maybe you weren't romantic enough. Maybe you just weren't enough. But here's the brutal truth. It wasn't what you gave. It was what your giving revealed. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the touch." They see what you seem to be, not what you are. And what did you seem to be? Available, eager, easy. Now pause and ask yourself, what does availability look like to a woman who's used to being chased every day? Does it look like strength or submission? In her world where attention floods her phone daily, what stands out isn't abundance. It's scarcity. It's presence that's earned, not presence that's given away for free. The man who overgives early doesn't signal depth. He signals hunger. And hunger repels more than it attracts. Because real value doesn't chase. It anchors. It commands space by existing, not by pursuing. Let's put it clearly. The man who constantly texts, adjusts his schedule, always says yes. He's not building connection. He's erasing mystery. And in that absence of tension, attraction quietly dies. But the man who moves differently, who doesn't rush to reply, who doesn't drop his life to earn a smile, who remains focused on his path regardless of who shows up, that man becomes rare. And rarity is magnetic. Women don't chase availability, they chase significance. So here's the real shift. The moment you stop placing her at the center of your universe, you give her a reason to wonder where your gravity lies. Imagine two men. The first man waits on her. He's always ready, always eager. She texts. He replies in seconds. She cancels. He forgives instantly. He places her above himself. The second man, he doesn't play games, but he's building something. He's not always reachable. Not because he's ignoring her, but because his life is already full. He responds with clarity, not urgency. He gives time, but never chases it. Which man will she lean into? Which man will cause her to pause? To wonder, to pursue. It's not about coldness. It's about depth. It's about being a man who lives in a world she wants to enter. Not a man who abandons his world just to be in hers. And this is why your mission matters. This is why your habits, your discipline, your personal growth, they're not just for you. They shape the field you operate from. Because every time you chase her, you send one silent message. You are more valuable than my purpose. And nothing drains masculine energy faster than that lie. Here's what women feel. Even if they never say it, a man who gives away all his time has nothing sacred left. No boundaries, no standard, no kingdom. Machiavelli warned rulers that constant exposure breeds contempt. A man who is always present loses the art of influence. In dating, this translates to something simple. Let her feel your absence. Let her experience what it means to not have constant access, not to punish, but to remind that your attention is earned, not owed. When she doesn't hear from you, she'll begin to wonder. When you don't show up instantly, she'll begin to question. And in that space, desire begins to grow. You don't need to withdraw love. You need to invest it wisely. Into your body, your craft, your legacy. Because when your time becomes valuable to you, it becomes valuable to her. You train, you build, you think clearly. And when you do engage with her, you do it from abundance, not lack. You're not hoping she fills a void. You're offering a window into a life that's already full. And in that subtle shift, everything changes. She starts to lean in. She texts first. She shows up with more effort. Not because you played games, but because you finally stopped playing yourself. So let me ask you one final question. If she had to earn your time the way you earn your own, would she qualify? This is the paradox of attraction. The moment you stop chasing is the moment she begins to wonder what makes you so hard to catch. And when she begins to wonder, she begins to value. So from this moment forward, become the man whose time must be earned, not through manipulation, but through presence, purpose, power. Because the man who builds himself first never has to beg to be chosen. He simply waits while the right woman chooses to follow. There's something more dangerous than rejection, more silent than betrayal, more powerful than a yes or a no. It's indifference. And do you know, when indifference starts, the moment she thinks she already knows everything about you, because mystery isn't just sexy, it's essential. In every story that captures your imagination, there's one thing that keeps you turning the page. Mystery. It's not the ending. It's the not knowing, the tension between what's seen and what's still hidden. That's what pulls you in. That's what makes the heart race. Think about your favorite movie. The characters you couldn't stop thinking about. They didn't reveal everything in the first act. They made you wonder. They made you chase meaning. They left space for discovery. And yet, most men sabotage their own story. They meet a woman. They want to impress her. So they unload everything. Their dreams, their past, their wounds, their fears, all in the first few conversations. They think this proves they're genuine. They call it transparency. But what they don't realize is, they've just handed her the final chapter. And when a story ends too soon, the reader puts the book down. Machiavelli said, "A man who reveals all his intentions becomes predictable, and the predictable man is easy to defeat." In dating, that doesn't mean you're going to war, but it does mean this. If she already knows every thought you have, every feeling you feel, every plan you've made, she has no reason to lean in. Mystery is not about playing games. It's about protecting depth. Because when everything is revealed too soon, nothing feels earned. And what isn't earned is rarely cherished. Let's make it clear. This isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about restraint. It's about knowing this truth. You are a vault, not a vending machine. The more she has to unlock, the more invested she becomes. Imagine two men. The first man wears his heart on his sleeve. He shares every scar like a badge. He over-explains, over-analyzes, over-gives. He wants to connect so badly that he forgets to protect his own soul. He's like a documentary with no mystery. Informative, but forgettable. The second man moves differently. He's warm. He's open, but he's also measured. He shares what matters, but not everything at once. He listens more than he speaks. He lets the moment breathe. He's not rushing to be understood. He's grounded in who he is. She leaves the conversation not knowing everything, but wanting to. That's the man she thinks about. That's the man she texts later, just to understand him a little more. Because desire is born in discovery, and discovery can't happen if there's nothing left to uncover. In a world that overshares, that posts every thought and emotion like a public diary, your privacy becomes power. Machiavelli understood this well. He believed that the more hidden a man's intent, the more powerful his influence. Not because he was dishonest, but because he was unreadable. And unreadable doesn't mean confusing. It means captivating. It means you don't hand your blueprint to just anyone. So ask yourself, why do you share so quickly? Is it to build trust, or is it fear? Fear that if you don't impress her now, you'll lose your chance. That fear is loud. It's obvious. And it makes your presence feel desperate. But silence is strong. Stillness is rare. The man who holds back, who reveals himself slowly, who lets her earn each layer, he becomes unforgettable. Because every new truth he reveals feels like a gift, a reward, a doorway into something sacred. And that is intimacy. Not forced closeness, but earned closeness. So how do you live this? You stop offering your soul on the first night. You protect your energy. You share selectively. You let your life speak for itself. You don't text updates every hour. You don't explain every mood. You don't share every scar before trust is built. Not because you're hiding, but because you're whole. Whole enough to let someone walk beside you without needing them to fix you. You give her curiosity. And curiosity breeds attraction. You don't speak to fill silence. You let silence speak for you. Because in a world full of noise, the man who speaks with purpose becomes magnetic. So remember this, the more she has to wonder, the more she'll want to know. The more she earns, the more she values. Machiavelli would say, the wise man hides his intent not to deceive, but to remain ungoverned. Let her feel like she's unlocking a vault, not scrolling through a diary. Because the man who is mysterious isn't distant. He's unforgettable. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't chase clarity. He doesn't react just because she pulls away. He observes. He breathes. He stays still. And in that stillness, he becomes unforgettable. Because here's what most men never learn. Control isn't about dominance. It's about emotional discipline. And that, right there, is what separates the man she respects from the man she leaves. Machiavelli said, "The man who cannot govern his passions will soon be governed by others." That's not just about politics. It's about attraction. It's about power. You see, women don't test you to hurt you. They test you to see what you're made of. They want to know, can you stay calm when plans change? Can you hold your ground when tension rises? Can you remain composed when your ego feels bruised? Because if you can't control yourself, you can't protect her. Not emotionally, not energetically, not spiritually. Most men crumble under pressure. They get ghosted and spiral into panic. They get one dry reply and send 5 texts to compensate. They feel uncertainty and try to force reassurance. But every time you do that, you reveal something fatal. That your center isn't rooted. That your identity depends on her response. That your power is reactive, not sovereign. And that kills attraction. Because what she needs, what she feels at her core, is your stillness, your groundedness, your ability to remain unshaken. She doesn't want perfection. She wants presence. A presence that doesn't vanish under pressure. The man who can sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it, he becomes rare. And in a chaotic world, rarity is irresistible. Let's break it down. She ignores you for a few hours. The weak man spirals. He wonders what he did wrong. He sends anxious texts. He loses sleep over her silence. But the grounded man, he doesn't panic. He doesn't assume. He returns to his mission, to his training, to his peace. Because her absence doesn't shake his foundation, it sharpens it. He doesn't react emotionally. He responds intentionally when it's worth responding. And that is the essence of masculine power. You see, most men confuse intensity with depth. But yelling louder doesn't make you stronger. Begging harder doesn't make you more lovable. Speeding up doesn't make things clearer. Sometimes the real power is in the pause. The pause before you speak. The pause before you chase. The pause before you lose yourself. Because in that pause, you reclaim control. Not over here, but over you. And once a man controls himself, no one else can. You become unshakable. Not cold, not distant, just deeply centered. And women feel it. Even if they can't explain it, they notice how calm your voice stays, how steady your gaze remains, how relaxed your energy is. Even under pressure, they sense that you're different. Not because you suppress emotions, but because you've mastered them. And that's the key. You don't deny your feelings. You hold them. You process them. You don't bleed them onto everyone around you. Because masculinity isn't found in control of others. It's found in mastery of self. So how do you become that man? You start small. You slow your breath. You feel anger rise, and you choose not to act on it. You feel jealousy, but you don't let it make you beg. You feel rejection, but you don't let it rewrite your worth. You learn to sit in the fire without losing your center. Because the man who stays calm while the world panics commands respect without saying a word. And in the quiet power of that restraint, she feels something rare, something ancient, something safe. Not safety in softness, but safety in structure, in stillness, in control. And suddenly, she's no longer testing you. She's leaning in, not because you chased as note, but because you didn't. So remember this. The next time your heart races, don't act. Don't panic. Don't explain. Breathe. Anchor. Return to center. Because a man who stays calm under pressure doesn't need to demand love. He attracts it through presence. You can't be loved deeply until you're respected fully. But most men chase love, while letting respect slip quietly through their fingers. They tolerate the late replies. They excuse the subtle digs. They accept the flaking, the hot and cold games, the shifting moods, all in the name of understanding, all in the hope that one day she'll recognize how patient, how kind, how good they've been. But here's the truth. Every time you let disrespect slide, you don't seem noble, you seem weak. Machiavelli warned us, if you do not command respect, you invite betrayal. And betrayal in relationships doesn't always come as cheating or abandonment. Sometimes, it comes in the form of slow erosion of boundaries, dignity, presence. It begins small. She cancels last minute. She mocks something important to you. She flirts with other men in front of you. And you stay silent. You smile through it. You say, it's fine, but deep down, you feel it. The part of you that's vanishing. You're not avoiding conflict. You're erasing yourself. Because here's the hard reality. If you never draw the line, she'll never know where it is. And when there's no line, there's no gravity. And without gravity, there's no pull, no weight, no reason to stay. Respect isn't given for being easy. It's earned by being clear. Let's stop confusing peacekeeping with strength. True strength is calm. Yes, but it is precise. It says, I don't need to raise my voice, but I won't let you cross this line. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to protect the core of who you are. Because when you don't protect your standard, you don't have one. And when you don't have one, you become forgettable. Here's what most men miss. A woman doesn't test you because she's evil. She tests you to feel something solid, to see if you have spine, to see if you can lead the dynamic, to see if you're a man or a placeholder. And every time you smile through disrespect, you prove her suspicion. You can be pushed. You can be molded. You can be broken. But when you hold firm, when you correct gently but firmly, when you say, that's not okay with me, when you're willing to walk away if the line is crossed, that's when she feels something real. Not dominance, but direction. Not control, but clarity. And clarity is what creates trust. Because in a world full of men who bend, who adjust, who chase, who explain, the one who stays grounded becomes unforgettable. So how do you embody this? You decide what matters to you, and you hold it. With calm, with presence, without apology. If she mocks something sacred to you, you don't laugh with her. You look her in the eye and say, I don't joke about things that define me. If she cancels last minute again and again, you don't chase for another plan. You step back, let her reach. Let her prove she values your time. And if she crosses a hard boundary, you don't explode. You exit. You don't throw a fit. You walk with grace. Because the man who walks away without shouting walks with power. You see, real masculinity isn't about being liked. It's about being respected. And the man who's respected will always be loved more deeply than the one who's merely liked. Machiavelli would remind you, a ruler who fears upsetting others will soon lose his throne. And as a man, your throne is your self-respect. Your time, your energy, your peace. If you trade those away just to keep her comfortable, you will lose her anyway. Because she may enjoy the power, but she'll lose the desire. So draw your lines, not with anger, but with integrity. Speak them, live them, enforce them quietly. Because when you know your limits, you teach the world, including her, how to treat you. And when she feels that, when she knows you won't bend just to keep her, that's when she sees you not as a boy chasing comfort, but as a man worthy of respect. A man who loses his mission will always become a servant to someone else's. And often, it doesn't start with chains. It starts with love. He falls for her. And slowly, he adjusts. He compromises. He gives a little more of himself. And a little more. Until one day, he doesn't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. His goals, postponed. His hobbies, abandoned. His fire, dimmed. And he tells himself, it's noble. That this is what being a good man means. That real love requires sacrifice. But here's the bitter truth. If you sacrifice your freedom to keep a woman, you will lose her anyway. Because no woman, no matter what she says, wants to be the center of your universe. She wants to be part of a man's world, not the world. Machiavelli said, a prince must always rule his domain. If he does not, someone else will. As a man, your domain is your direction, your mission, your sovereignty. And if you hand that away, not only do you lose your edge, you lose her respect. Because when she met you, you had fire, you had vision, you had something she wanted to stand beside. But the moment you orbit her, instead of building your world, that fire begins to die. And she feels it, not as love, but as regression. She may never say it aloud, but something in her will pull back. Because the man she was drawn to, the one who walked with purpose, has vanished. You became available, but you stopped being valuable. Here's the paradox. A woman doesn't fall in love because you need her. She falls when she sees you don't. Not because you're cold, but because you are whole. And in that wholeness, your love becomes a choice, not a dependency. And nothing is more powerful than a man who chooses her without ever needing to lose himself in the process. So how do you preserve your sovereignty? You keep building, even when she says, why don't we just relax more? You stay focused. Even when she wants more of your time, you maintain your rhythm. Even when she tries to slow you down, you don't do this out of ego. You do it out of duty. Because your path matters. Your discipline matters. Your vision matters. She is not the reason you wake up in the morning. Your purpose is. And here's the magic. When you live like this, you attract a different kind of woman. Not the one who wants to control you, but the one who respects your movement, who supports it, who finds her place not above it, but beside it. And if she can't, you let her go, not with anger, but with grace, because you no longer trade freedom for affection. That era is over. You're no longer the man who abandons his dream to be accepted. You're the man who walks his path without apology. And if someone wants to come with you, they rise to your level. You don't shrink to meet theirs. That is what it means to be sovereign. Machiavelli didn't glorify love. He glorified strategy, clarity, disciplina. And the most strategic thing you can do as a man is to never surrender your mission for the comfort of temporary closeness. Because when you lose your edge, you lose the gravity that pulls her in. So keep moving, keep growing, keep leading. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because that's who you are. And when she sees that, when she realizes you'd rather lose her than lose yourself, that's when she truly begins to respect you. That's when she chooses you, Not out of convenience, but out of awe. Because the man who remains sovereign, who refuses to trade his fire for false peace, he doesn't need to chase love. He commands it. Not by force, but by becoming the kind of man no one wants to lose. Now you understand. Attraction isn't something you chase. It's something you create. Not through effort, but through essence. Not by proving, but by becoming. You don't win her by chasing. You win her by stopping the chase. By choosing presence over panic, stillness over performance, silence over desperation. Because here's the truth no one told you. The man who commands love doesn't beg for it. He simply becomes impossible to ignore. Not because he's flashy, not because he's charming, but because he is grounded. He has direction. He has standards. He has a life, a mission, a throne. He refuses to abandon just to be liked. That man doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks because his silence has already spoken. He doesn't show up everywhere. He shows up intentionally. And when a woman meets this kind of man, she feels it immediately. She feels the weight of his presence. She feels the edge in his restraint. She feels the clarity in his energy, and it forces her to rise or to walk away. And if she walks away, so be it. Because your worth isn't proven in who stays. It's proven in what you refuse to lose just to keep them. This is what Machiavellian wisdom teaches us. That control isn't taken. It's maintained. That power isn't loud. It's composed. That influence isn't forced. It's earned. Through clarity, restraint, and discipline. Let's remind you of the 5 principles. 1. Build your value. Let her come to you. Not with words, but with action. Not by chasing, but by anchoring into your own life. R. Keep some mystery. Let her earn each layer. Because what's uncovered slowly is valued deeply. San. Master your emotions. Stay still when others would collapse. Because your calm is your gravity. Su. Draw your lines. Expect. Respect. Without yelling. Without threat. With quiet strength. Woo. Protect your freedom. Stay sovereign. Because your purpose isn't a side note, it's the headline. And she was never meant to replace it. This isn't manipulation. This isn't mind games. This is maturity. This is the masculine redefined, not through bravado, but through mastery. So from now on, you don't chase clarity. You create it. You don't explain your worth. You embody it. You don't ask, what do I need to do to make her stay? You ask, is she strong enough to walk beside who I truly am? Because love built on performance always collapses. But love built on truth, that lasts. And if she can't meet you where you are, let her go. Let her walk. Because the man you are becoming, the man you've always been underneath the noise, underneath the fear, underneath the people-pleasing, he doesn't need to chase. He stands. He leads. He commands. And if this message stirred something in you, if something inside you feels still, focused, unapologetically clear, then don't scroll away. Don't ignore this moment. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but for the version of you that refuses to shrink again, that refuses to chase people who were never meant to be kept. Because from this day forward, you are not the man who performs. You are not the man who waits to be chosen. You are not the man who gives his crown away for crumbs of affection. You are the man who walks his path, even if it means walking alone. And because of that, you will never walk empty. You don't beg for love. You don't compete for attention. You command it by mastering yourself. And that is what makes you unforgettable.